Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amrutam gamaya asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amrutam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. असत्याकडून सत्याकडे, अंधाराकडून प्रकाशाकडे आणि मृत्यूकडून अनंत जीवनाकडे हे प्रभो तू आम्हाला ने. असत्य से सत्य तक, अंधार से प्रकाश तक, मृत्यु से जीवन तक हे भगवान तू हमें ले. From darkness lead us to light, from untruth to truth, and from death to everlasting life. My dear students, I want to welcome you to this session titled The Jesuit Ethos, because you are in a Jesuit institution. What does the word ethos mean? And what does the word Jesuit ethos mean? The word ethos is actually a Greek term and refers in English to ideals of an institution, to the guiding beliefs of an institution, to the character, you might say, and for what the institution stands for. So what makes this institution work? How does it function? What are the norms, the rules, the vision which this institution has in order to move forward? You will notice that on the right of your screen, there is the picture of an individual. And below that, you will notice there are dates. The first dates, which are 1491 and 1556, refer to the birth year and the death year of this man. Below that, there are two other numbers. The first is 530 and the second is 465. 530 refers to the number of years before which he was born. That means he was born 530 years ago and he died 465 years ago. If I were to ask you, do you know the name of your great-great-grandfather? The larger majority of you will say, surely not, because my great-great-great-grandfather lived at least about 200 years ago. You notice, in your own family, the larger majority of us might not know the names of our relatives, of our own ancestors, and yet we remember this man who lived 530 years ago and died 465 years ago. And the reason why we remember him is because the legacy which he left behind remains even today. There were many legacies that he left behind, but the most important legacy was the legacy of education. His name is Ignatius, and the full name, because he came from a place named Loyola in Spain, he is usually known as Ignatius of Loyola. Because he achieved great things in this world, he is given the title of saint. So when we refer to Ignatius, we usually refer to him as Saint Ignatius of Loyola, who left a fantastic legacy behind, mainly the legacy of education. Now, Saint Ignatius began the Society of Jesus, and the Society of Jesus is known in short as the Jesuits. So the Jesuit is an individual who belongs to a Catholic order of priests, which is founded by Ignatius of Loyola. The dates that you see below the word Jesuit refer to first, the year in which the Society of Jesus was founded. So even though Ignatius was born in the year 1491, it was a long time, when he was 49 years old, that he founded the society, because he was discerning and questioning and praying and reflecting and asking God what God's will for him was. It was finally revealed when he was 49 years old that this is what he must do. So in the year 1540, approval was given officially for the Society of Jesus. The number 481 is a number which must console you. And I say that it must console you because the institution in which you are may be about 80 or 90 years old, but the experience of those in that institution, because it is a Jesuit institution, because it is run by Jesuits and those who are influenced by the Jesuits, is 481 years. In other words, you are in an institution which is experienced greatly with regard to education and all kinds of education. A Jesuit is also a member of the Society of Jesus and strives to be like Jesus. The term Jesus must be seen as a metaphor for truth, for justice, for love, for selflessness, some of the qualities which I will mention later. Because the Jesuits were great intellectuals, they were also given a pseudonym. Some of them gave a very disparaging pseudonym and referred to the Jesuit as one who was very cunning. So if you go through the Oxford Dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary, and you look at the word Jesuit or the word Jesuitical, you will realize that mentioned there at the side of the word Jesuit or Jesuitical is an individual who is cunning, who is given to intrigue and equivocation. You are in Xavier's Institute of Education, and Xavier's Institute of Education is named after another Jesuit. Even though Ignatius was the founder of the Society of Jesus, Francis Xavier is known more than Saint Ignatius, at least in India, because it was Francis Xavier who came to India. Now, the life, the mission, and the death of Francis Xavier show us that one does not need to live for an extraordinary long period of time to make a difference in the world. Francis Xavier died when he was 46 years old, which today is considered very, very young. And the name Xavier is actually both a surname and refers to the place Javier in Spain from which Xavier came. And so, leaving Spain, coming to India in order to reach out as much as possible to people. And one very important way, besides others, in which Francis Xavier reached out was through education. So he built schools, he built colleges, he went about all of the south of India trying to reach out to as many people as possible. He was known by a nickname. He was called a saint in a hurry, because his intention, even as an individual, was to set the whole world ablaze with love. He arrived in Goa in the year 1542, and in 7 short years, because he went to Japan in 1549, in 7 short years, he accomplished such a great deal that today, over 500 years later, he is still remembered. So the institution in which you will study your BA degree is known as the Xavier Institute of Education, and named after this great man, lived for not a very long time on this earth, but made a difference and also left a legacy. There are many, many things which I could say about the Jesuit ethos. For our reflection today, I am going to choose 4 of them. AMDG. The full form of AMDG, which is an acronym, is Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam. This is Latin, which in English means for the greater glory of God. This must be seen as an overarching principle which you, as a student of a Jesuit institution, must try to imbibe. The second quality of the Jesuit ethos, or what we stand for, or our ideal, how we live our lives, is to realize that everything and that everyone is temporary. And that is why we are trustees not only of ourselves, we are trustees also of our universe. God is present everywhere. Even in this COVID-19 pandemic, it is likely that we may not have been able to see God's hand as clearly as we would like. Those of us who have faith are pleading with God, are invoking God, are asking God to come to our aid, and we sometimes may think that God does not seem to answer. However, the discovery of these vaccines, the selflessness of people, the reaching out to neighbor, the being less selfish and more selfless are all the advantages that we have seen of COVID-19, and we must have the ability to find God there. This is one of the hallmarks of a Jesuit student, a student who is able to find God. And if a student says, I don't believe in God, then to find good in all things. If you cannot find God, it does not matter, but at least you find good in all things. And once again, as a climax, you might say, becoming men and women for others. These are 4 aspects of the Jesuit ethos which I would like to take for our reflection. The first one is ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam. And you notice that there are 3 degrees with adjectives in the English language. That is the positive, the comparative, and the superlative. And if you look at what exactly Ignatius has done when he chose this motto as the overarching motto for the Society of Jesus, he chose not the positive, he chose not the superlative, but he chose the comparative degree. In other words, it is not for the great glory of God. It is not even for the greatest glory of God. It is for the greater glory of God ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam. And the reason why he chose this comparative degree is because when there is the comparative, there is always the striving for more. If I am the fastest, there is the danger I might become complacent. If I'm fast, there is the danger I might not strive to become the fastest or faster. However, if I keep in mind faster, braver, higher, longer, and so on, then that striving remains. I constantly search for the new. If you go through the history of sports, and especially of athletics, what you will realize that whether in the 100-meter dash, whether the 200 and 400-meter dash, whether the 1500-meter run, whether the mile, whether the high jump, the long jump, the triple jump, whether whatever event, if you go through the history and look for how the records have been lowered and lowered and lowered, and the time taken has been less and less and less, and the jump has been higher and longer and more, you will realize this is exactly what the Magus has done. There was a time when no one thought that the mile could be broken in under 4 minutes. They said, no, it is not possible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. And then Roger Bannister came, and Roger Bannister broke that 4-minute mile. And then after that, people realized that yes, we can. And so therefore, in the Magus, what happens is this: the good becomes better, the better becomes better still, and the better still becomes still better. And you notice the still better becomes better still, and the better still becomes still better. In other words, we do not become complacent. However, we need to understand it is the greater glory of God. In other words, it is not saying to you and to me, you must strive to be the first in the class. No, that is not important. What you must strive is to do good and then to do better and to do better and to do better. That is what the striving is. That is what ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam means. And if we use God as a metaphor, again, for truth and for love, then for the greater glory of truth, or the greater glory of love, or the greater glory of selflessness, or the greater glory of giving, this is what you must understand in the first of these points which I make today, namely the Jesuit ethos ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam. I would like you, my dear students, to see if you can memorize this for your own reflection and repeat it as a prayer every morning. The good must become better. The better must become better still, and the better still must become still better, and the still better must become better still. The second aspect of the Jesuit ethos, which I would like to take for our reflection, is temporariness. Synonyms of temporariness which will help us to understand them better, are impermanence and trusteeship. There has never been a time for you, I'm sure, when life was seen as so temporary as it is now. It is very likely that many of you would have had relatives, would have had friends, would have had people whom you knew who were on this earth, but now are with God in heaven. The temporary nature of the human being, the temporary nature of the world has never been as visible to us as during this last year of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we are asking ourselves today to realize this more and more, that we must realize that we are therefore responsible, because everything is temporary, because we are temporary, and because we must leave this world a better place for the coming generations, we must use things responsibly. Water is a natural resource. We in the city of Mumbai, we in cities in our country are blessed to have water and sufficient water for our needs. However, we must always be sparing in our use of water. Surely during these days, we are called to wash our hands more than in the past. We are called to sanitize our hands as much as we can, and yet we can do that by using as little water as possible. And so we need to be responsible in our use of things. And I am going to suggest three, there are many others, but I'm going to suggest to you three practical ways in which you will use things responsibly. First is in your use of water. If you can make a resolution that you are going to use water, yes, use water as sparingly as possible. You're not going to waste water, because water is a very, very, very precious resource. Do you know that in the months of April and May, when thousands of our brothers and sisters reached back to their villages, went to their homes, because they wanted to touch the feet of the father and the mother, because they wanted to see the father and the mother. The pandemic had frightened them so much. That's why they went home. Most of them did not have water even to wash their feet, let alone to drink. We call this group migrants, which I believe is a bad word. For me, the term migrant is a bad word, and the reason why it is a bad word is because we have used it to label those out there. Every one of us is a migrant. You look at the word migrant in the dictionary, and you will find that a migrant is an individual, a man or a woman, a human person who goes to a place, in my dictionary, to fill his or her stomach. How can any one of us say that we are not migrants? So in other words, the whole world is a migrant, and that is why I prefer to use the term poor. I prefer to use the term downtrodden. I prefer to use the term marginalized. I prefer to use the term those whom society considers as outcasts. Those are better terms. Those are real terms. Migrants, my friends, is a created term. Keep this in mind. Keep reflecting. Don't simply read the newspaper and accept whatever is on the newspaper. Don't simply watch the news on television and accept whatever a particular channel is telling you. Think for yourself. Think about this term migrant and see if it has not become such a beautiful term for us that we have a discussion. So let's have a Zoom session now on how we can help the migrants. The migrants are not on your Zoom. The migrants do not have the facility of the Zoom. The migrants are there. They are the poor. They are the marginalized. They do not have food to eat. And so, the first thing I would like you to do practically is to make a resolution to use water sparingly. If you can use as little as you need and never waste water. The second is the use of paper. When I was in college, I would tell my students that if they gave me a note in writing, I would never read the note if it was written on paper which had the other side free or clean. It had to be written on a paper which had been used. One side has been used and you write the note to me on the other side. My students, pick this up, and I hope you pick it up also. Realize this: when you're using your exercise book, you notice that there is a margin in the exercise books. Now, why do you leave the margin in the exercise books? Who has told you that? When you're answering an examination, the margin is supposed to be that place where you write the number of the answer which you are, the question which you are answering. You write the number down. So number 1 or number 2. But in your exercise book, there is no need for you to leave the margin. If you were to calculate the margins which are on either side of your exercise book, you will realize that by the end of a 100-page book, you have lost about 8 pages because you've not used the margin. Why should you not use the margin? It's your book. So please save paper as much as you can. And third, never waste food. There are millions of our brothers and sisters in our country, and there are billions in our world who often go to bed without even one meal, and an equal number who go to bed with only one meal. Can you spare a thought for them? Can you make a resolution that you are never going to waste food? Because we are impermanent, I will not be obsessed about things in this life. I will not let them control me so much that I lose control of myself. And finally, I notice today, if you ask me, what is the most striking lesson of the COVID-19 pandemic? I would say to you, interdependence. We knew in our minds that we are dependent on each other. And that is true. And we are dependent on each other. However, today, we have realized more than ever, not only are we dependent, we are interdependent, which means my cough affects you. Your sneeze affects me. Your touch can infect me. My touch can infect you. Can you imagine that this is the kind of world that we are living in? We were always calling the world a global village. Now, that global village has become a reality. And so today, we need to keep in mind, I am my brothers and sisters' keeper. I cannot anymore live a selfish life. I cannot anymore live a self-centered life. I must reach out, even if in a very small way, to my brothers and sisters who are out there on the streets and who go to bed often without even one meal a day. I must make a resolution that I am going to reach out to at least one person in a small way. It could be with a food packet. It could be with some money. It could be with a telephone call. It could be with a visit. It could be by helping the person to buy their groceries and to run some errands for them. It can be anything. But let me, as a Xavier student, realize this interdependence and say to myself that I am going to reach out to at least one person, even if in a small way, through a telephone call which I make to the person, through an email or a WhatsApp message which I send to the person. Even that is enough. And then if you can do it in bigger ways, that is even better. And so I am my brothers and sisters' keeper. It is not always that everyone might be able to find God, but we can find good in all things, in all persons, and in all events. There was a great paleontologist, philosopher, theologian, a great Jesuit named Teilhard de Chardin. He made a statement once when he said, there is nothing that is only profane in all creation for those who know how to look. There is nothing that is only profane in all creation for those who know how to look. So if you remove your tainted glasses, if you remove your prejudiced way of looking, if you remove your stereotypical way of looking, then you will find that in God, there is persons, in things, events, and in persons, good or God is present. Today in our country, there is a great deal of stereotyping. And the stereotyping is done because of caste, because of creed, because of language, because of religion, and most importantly, the stereotyping is done because of economics, the rich and the poor. The top 3% of the country's population own close to 80% of the wealth of the nation. And so I'm inviting you to realize that you can find God, and you look for God very specially in the poor. I am aware that for many people, this pandemic has been a tremendous challenge. They have not been able to do what they wanted to do. They cannot have classes as they wanted to have classes, and they keep on having a challenge with that. And so therefore, we are asking ourselves now, what exactly is the message that God is giving us? And so what we need to do now, even in this pandemic, and this is the faith which we must have, trust that God will do what is best. What is happening now, we may not be able to see it. It might make no logical sense to us. It might not be reasonable, and yet there is a message in what is happening now. As a matter of fact, those of you who are English students, English literature students, may have done the play Hamlet. And in the play Hamlet, there is a place where Hamlet says to his friend Horatio, there are more things in heaven and on earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. There are more things in heaven and on earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. In other words, there are many things that you and I will never be able to understand. Even the great Dr. Fauci, who is an eminent expert in these communicable diseases, says even today, we are still searching. We are still finding our way. And can you imagine? It is a dead virus that has controlled not only you and me, but has controlled the whole universe. That shows the extent of our discoveries. That shows the extent of our technology. That shows the extent of how we think we have developed in science and technology and the advances that we have made. Honestly, they don't seem to be very much. If a dead virus can tell us that we cannot go out of our homes, that we cannot touch our loved ones, that we cannot hug our loved ones, if a dead virus is dictating terms to us, it indicates how advanced we really are. And therefore, we don't need to worry about that. God will do what God has to do. What we need to do is this. We need to do what we have to do. Finding God means I do my best at every single moment in the firm knowledge that God will do what remains. In other words, I plant the seed and I water it, and God will make it grow. So you sow and God will make it grow. Ignatius had a very, very beautiful way of summarizing this finding God in all things when he said, when you work, whether it is your studies, whether it is preparing to give a class, whether it is your online session, whether it is attending a session, when you work as if everything depends only on you. Don't bring God into the picture. Don't use God as a crutch. However, he said, when you then finish your work, you have done whatever is required of you, and then you pray as if everything depends only on God. And the fourth and final point, my friends, is this. If you have been in a Jesuit institution, and those of you who have not had that privilege in the past are now having that privilege, you can never leave a Jesuit institution except if you become a man or a woman for others. And what does this mean, becoming a man or a woman for others? In very practical terms, it is a move from materialism to generosity. The world is saying, if you are not number one, you are no one. You look at the advertisements, every advertisement is trying to strive you to have more, to possess more, to own more, to accumulate. And we ask ourselves, where are we going to take all of that which we accumulate? It is enough and more. There are some of our industrialists in our own country who have more than enough for the next 50 generations. Why do they need so much? And yet there are other industrialists also in our country and in the world who now are realizing that we need to give away. Because in the final analysis, every industrialist has earned his or her money because of the people whom they have reached out to. Now they need to reach out in another way. So you, my dear friend, must move as much as you can, and every time it's a consistent movement. It is a journey from materialism to generosity. The second movement is from the I, myself, and me. from egoism of putting the I in the center to thinking about others. And you can do this in a way, in a very practical way in your studies, by reaching out to your companions, by sharing your notes with them, by asking them if they need help. And you can reach out to the students and those whom you serve also in the same way. There is a move from consumerism to detachment. And the question is, how much is enough? And I would like to ask you a question about the things which you possess. And it is this: do you possess things, or do things possess you? Do you own things, or do things own you? Do you have things, or do things have you? And finally, you become a man or a woman for others because you have been in a Jesuit institution, by moving from social injustice to concern, not merely for the migrants, notice the term, but concern for the poor. If I can reach out to at least one poor person every single day, I would believe that this session has been worth it. Because if each one of you, in a small way, you don't need to do great things, you don't need to do big things, whatever you can do in your capacity as a student, if you can reach out to at least one poor person every day, I think my time spent with you will have been worth it. And so, in a summary form, the Magis, I'm going to remind you, is the comparative degree. And then you remember this phrase which I asked you to note, if you can repeat it every morning: the good becomes better. The better becomes better still. And the better still becomes still better. And the still better becomes better still, and it goes on and on and on. So you are going to be better than the best. You are going to jump higher than the highest. You're going to run faster than the fastest. You're going to be braver than the bravest. Every one of us on this earth is a trustee. And so therefore, I will use whatever I have been given in such greatness by God. I will use it responsibly. I will use it sparingly. I will never, never waste whether water, whether paper, whether food, and everything else along with it. It is true that we are finding it difficult during these days. But a Jesuit student does not give in to discouragement. A Jesuit student does not lose hope. A Jesuit student never, never gives in to despair. A Jesuit student always looks optimistically, forgetting the black spot and focusing on the white wall. And you become, and you must become, even as you get involved with us in St. Xavier's Institute of Education, a man and a woman for others. I want to end my session, my dear students, with a very practical lesson for life, which I would like you to keep in mind even as you do your studies, your 2-year course in the Xavier Institute of Education. And it is a practical lesson which is made up of only 4 simple steps. If you keep these 4 steps in mind, I really believe not only that you will be successful in your B.Ed degree and doing exceptionally well in your degree, but also doing exceptionally well in life. And the first of these 4 stages is this: the person, man, woman, you, student, boy, girl, scatter the seed, the first step. What is the meaning of scattering the seed. Scattering the seed must be seen as a metaphor for doing everything you are called to do. It must be seen as a metaphor for leaving no stone unturned. It must be seen as doing everything within my capability. An example: if I am meant to give an online session, I already have a mock session before my online session. I ensure that I am in a place where the electricity might not go off suddenly. Or if it does go off, I have the backup of my phone. I make sure that my phone is fully charged if I'm giving my session on the phone, or that my laptop is charged if I'm giving my session on laptop. In other words, I do everything within my power. I leave no stone unturned. The first step, I scatter the seed. So I do everything required of me. I don't leave anything undone. The second follows the first. Because I have been meticulous, because I have been industrious, because I have worked hard, and because I have done all that I was required to do, I can sleep at night. It follows the first, and you will have no insomnia. You will never need sleeping tablets if during the time when you are meant to do what you have to do, you have done it. Another Jesuit saint who died in his 20s, named John Berkmans, had a Latin motto by which he lived. And I'm going to suggest it to you because I believe that in 3 Latin words, you can really live an exceptional life. And those 3 words are Age quod agis. This is how it is spelled: A-G-E, but pronounced Age. Q-U-O-D, pronounced quod, and A-G-I-S, agis. So RJ, quod agis, and the translation in English means do what you are doing. In other words, when you are now listening to me, listen to me. Let not your mind get distracted saying, oh, when is this fellow going to finish now? It's already close to an hour. No, I focus on the present moment. I focus on the now. I do not get obsessed with the future. I don't worry about what has happened in the past. I look at what I am meant to do. You see, there are often times when we are so concerned about the result that we don't focus on the action. We need to focus on the action. The result will take care of itself. There is in the Bhagavad Gita a term named Nishkama Karma. And Nishkama Karma means that I do not desire the fruits of my action. I focus on my action, and on my action alone, the fruits will take care of themselves. And so I scatter the seed, and because I have scattered the seed, I can sleep at night. And because I have slept at night, I did not have insomnia. My mind was free, my mind was calm, my mind was serene, and I had a good sleep. I can get up in the day. And what is more important is that after getting up in the day, what I realize is that the seed grows. A 4-step process for success in whatever you are going to do, in any undertaking, in whatever you plan. Keep this 4-step process in mind. However, there is the danger that many of us will behave like this. First, we do not scatter the seed. That is, we do not do what we are meant to do. We leave many stones unturned. We focus more on what is going to happen tomorrow and the day after rather than on what is happening now. I do not prepare my class at all. I do not prepare my PowerPoint at all. I don't make anything about my connection. I don't bother about it. That is what is called we are not scattering the seed. And because I have not scattered the seed, because I have left many stones unturned and I have not done what I am meant to do, I am awake at night. Insomnia. I don't get sleep as I'm meant to sleep. And obviously, if I am awake at night, then I feel sleepy in the day because my body needs to recover. And what is worse is that the seed does not grow. My efforts, which are no efforts at all, obviously will not bear fruit. So this is a very practical lesson and a very logical lesson. I can summarize it for you in 4 words: scatter, sleep, awake, grow. In Latin, the Society of Jesus is known as Societas Jesu, the Society of Jesus, and what you see on your screen is the seal of the Society of Jesus for the greater glory of God. Thank you for your attention. God bless you all on this fantastic 2-year journey.